Hi everyone, welcome to the WooCommerce setup guide. In this little guide, we're going to walk you through how to set up your WooCommerce store to your Xoro system. So I'm at the sales channel module here. Let's see, I just accessed it by clicking on sales channels. And then what you can do is you can click on add sales channels and then just click on add WooCommerce here. So this will basically prompt you with a first, actually before even this screen, it'll ask you for a username and password. So please just contact us for that username and password. It's not going to be your regular credentials that you use to sign into your Xoro system. It's actually going to be a little bit different. So once you retrieve those credentials from us and enter them in, you're going to be greeted with this page. So this is basically just alerting you that there's going to be data flowing between Xoro and WooCommerce. So you're basically granting permission to Xoro to access that data from WooCommerce. So just click on grant and just click on connect to WooCommerce. And so what you can do is you can actually put in an account name. So this can be pretty much whatever you want. Let's call it Woo Store. This is just a name that you can give to your WooCommerce connection. Now for app ID, you're actually going to use your WooCommerce URL, the URL for your store. So I've been logged in here in another tab for WooCommerce. So I'm just going to fetch the URL for the WooCommerce store. It's actually this over here. Put that in app ID. And for consumer key and password, I'm actually just going to have to generate the API keys from WooCommerce. So what you can do to get that is go to your WooCommerce control panel here, click on settings, and then click on advanced, and then click on REST API, and then just click on add key. So let's call it Xoro connection. You can give it any name you like. And for permissions, you probably want to give it read write. In fact, you do want to give it read write so that Xoro has the ability to read from WooCommerce and write to WooCommerce. Let's click on generate API key. And then here's a key and secret that's been generated. So you don't want to leave this page. What you want to do is copy this consumer key. And you want to copy the password as well. In other words, the secret. And now let's click on sign in. And now you'll be greeted with this setup page where basically you configure how your WooCommerce is set up to connect with Xoro. So what we always recommend typically for a lot of our clients is you upload your SKUs first into Xoro, and then you upload the same SKUs into your e-commerce connection. So that whether that's your Shopify or WooCommerce, and then you link them later on. So in Shopify's case, you'll have to link the SKUs. However, in WooCommerce, there won't be any linking required. So basically what you want to do is don't tick this first option. Only tick this option if you're actually dropping SKUs from WooCommerce into your Xoro system. But usually we don't recommend that just because some of the data that comes from e-commerce connections, it can be a little, it can be flooded with some garbage data. So instead what we recommend is upload your SKUs into Xoro and upload your SKUs into WooCommerce, and then you're good to go. And of course, making sure that your SKUs match up in both systems. They have to be identical in order for orders to drop successfully. So in most cases, you'll leave this blank. You're going to tick this off. Now you have the choice here to export individual customers to Xoro, or just create one WooCommerce customer and use it for all orders. So this is basically you're going to decide whether you want to flood your ERP with a whole bunch of individual customers from your WooCommerce store. If you don't want to do that and just create one WooCommerce store, you can do that. And that's not going to affect any shipping or billing addresses. Those will be unique to the customer. So this is basically your choice. If you want to have individual customers, you can select this option. If not, you just want to create one WooCommerce customer, just select this option. Just one thing to note is if you do select this one and you have a lot of WooCommerce customers, you're going to get a lot of them accumulating in your ERP as well. Select your accounts receivable that you want to associate your customers with. So for any account connections, maybe just review the choice here with your accounting team they'll have a bit of a better idea what accounts to choose here. You do want to export orders. Obviously, that's the point of this WooCommerce connection. So what you can actually do is you can select the store that you want, the warehouse that you want to be connected to WooCommerce for. So whenever the orders drop, they'll be associated with this warehouse when they get dropped. For the payment account, you just want to make sure to select the right payment account. So this is basically when a payment's recorded in WooCommerce. You want to make sure that that basically those payments are recorded with the correct payment account. So again, just have this reviewed by your accounting team. For the liability account, basically you're going to want customer deposits. That's typically the liability account that's chosen because payments get dropped as deposits. If you're choosing to drop orders as sales orders, you can choose a tax exempt code. This is basically going to be in the case when an item is not taxed. What tax code did you want it to use? So in that case, it's just going to be tax exempt code. And tax calculation type, basically you'll want to consult with us on which calculation type you want to use depending on which state you're in. But if you're in California, you're going to choose origin hybrid. If there's anything else, just consult us on that one. You can select your project or class. So basically what you can do is set up classes within your Zoro system and associate all orders with that class so that when they get dropped into the system, they actually have that class attached to them. So this is handy if you want to see a breakdown of how your online's doing versus your retail versus your warehouse and so forth. Let's select the tax country. So this is basically the country in which you file taxes. I'm just going to select the United States here. The orders that get dropped, you can actually specify some shipping information and sales rep information here for those orders. So if you really wanted to enforce a sales rep for orders for Shopify or WooCommerce orders, you can select these settings here. I'll leave them as blank. It'll just fetch whatever's in the upload defaults. So just to quickly review, we selected to drop orders with this warehouse associated to them, and we selected some accounts that get attached to those payments, those deposits that get recorded with the orders. So now here you can actually choose your whether you want to drop the WooCommerce orders as sales orders into Zoro or as invoices. So if you want to drop the sales orders, so if you're going to fulfill those orders, you actually want to tick this box off. And what you want to do is put a location name here. So this is you want to get this from the location center for your warehouse. So whichever warehouse you're actually dropping these orders in. So this is usually used for the return location. Whenever items get credited, it's actually going to get credited to this location. So just head on over to the location center and look up the location display name of your warehouse for this. And you also have the option of auto releasing and auto waiving orders. So that's when basically orders get dropped into Zoro. If there's inventory on them, you can auto waive them, which will automatically create a waive on them. Or you can leave them as such and process them manually yourself. Now it's the inventory settings. So tick this off if you want any changes in inventory to get sent to WooCommerce. So basically, this is in the case where you want inventory changes to be sent to your e-commerce store. So in most cases, you do want those going through, and you want to select which inventory field those will be for. So for example, you have a couple of choices here. You have on hand, available, net available, and ATS. So just review your documentation on how each of these are calculated. In most cases, if you're selling out of your warehouse, that's your B2B, you're going to want ATS because that's your available to sell after the SKUs that are on released sales orders. So in a lot of cases, you're going to either want ATS or net available. Just have a look at your documentation and see which inventory level you want synced to WooCommerce. So let's go ahead. Let's select ATS in this case. You can actually select which warehouses you want connected to WooCommerce. So which which inventory set you want to be sent to WooCommerce. So you can actually select multiple warehouses by holding control, or you can just select a single warehouse. I'm just going to select a single warehouse here. Again, so what we did was we selected an inventory to sync our WooCommerce with. You can select any one of these basically. And again, review your documentation for these levels, inventory levels, just to see which one's which and how they work. And you can select which inventory to sync your WooCommerce with which warehouse. And this last optional field here is basically if you want to control which items you want to be synced to your WooCommerce store. So, for example, by default, it's actually gonna keep a track of changes for all SKUs on all orders, and any SKUs that you have in Zoro but are not in WooCommerce, it's actually going to throw an error when there's changes to ATS in the main warehouse for those SKUs, because it's going to think that it exists in Zoro, but it doesn't exist in WooCommerce. So the inventory change didn't go through. So in order to prevent all those extra errors, what you can actually do is all the SKUs that you have set up in your WooCommerce, you can give those SKUs in your Zoro system a tag, and you can actually sync that tag with your WooCommerce. So only changes for those items with that particular tag get added, get sent to your WooCommerce store. So let's go ahead, let's select a tag here. So again, you're going to want to set that up with your items. And so please, you can just, during your onboarding process, you can ask us if you have any questions on that. This feature is basically, this last part here is just so that your WooCommerce connection is easier to manage, and so you're not seeing as many errors, as many faulty errors, or unnecessary errors, I should say rather. So now you're going to select your time zone. And what you can do is enable auto import export. And so this is actually what you're going to do is WooCommerce is going to run, it's going to fetch orders from Zoro, rather, is going to fetch orders from your WooCommerce at an interval. So what I'll do is I'll tell it to start today, and I'll say to run every hour and every hour and a half, let's say. Typically, you want this running every half an hour to every 2 hours, depending on how busy your e-commerce store is. Basically, it'll fetch orders from your e-commerce store at this interval specified here. If there's any errors in the integration, so if there's an order that didn't go through or an inventory change that didn't go through, if you want, you can set up notifications. You can actually get emailed for those errors. So this is handy in order to manage your WooCommerce integration. So now hit complete setup. And there you go. So now your WooCommerce is set up, and you're pretty much ready to go to manage your WooCommerce orders from your Zoro system.